People have learned to read for centuries without having all the crazy stuff that we have as options today.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma.
Hi, Maria. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Saríce. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to have this conversation with you. And I'm sure a lot of moms and dads out here will get a lot of insights. This is actually such a cool topic. So tell us about yourself before we get into it.
So my name is Maria Golden. I'm a early childhood teacher. So I taught in the classroom setting for about 10 years before transitioning to stay home with my kids. But I also am a reading specialist and became a reading specialist 5 years ago. I had to think, same time that my daughter was born was about when I became a reading specialist. And so I became a reading specialist to help my students in the classroom with their reading journeys because I became really passionate about that while I was in the classroom. And once I transitioned to being home with my kids, I still wanted to work with children in their reading development. So I created a business called Growing in Literacy, and the purpose of the business is to help parents of young children grow in their reading development skills, help their children grow in those reading development skills. So I educate and empower parents to support their early learners in reading and writing too, but generally focusing on reading right now.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to get all into that. But it was something that stuck out to me and I think that's a lot of moms that I've interviewed so far have in common that like we wanted to stay home with our children and be there, but we also had this calling to do something else. And it's interesting, like who chooses to go after that calling? What gave you the motivation to do that, even though it's not easy? I'm learning this now. I have an almost 2-year-old. So what motivated you to really go for it? And did you have the support of your spouse? How was that?
So it wasn't necessarily a pre-planned position. I had always wanted to, but it was a scary step. So I just never did. But what kind of was a breaking point was childcare. We had 2 under 2 at the time, and finding childcare was difficult. And any childcare setting we were looking at, we couldn't get ourselves to do. So we really looked at finances and said, can we make this work? And decided we were going to give it a try. So when I left teaching, I said I was just going to do it for 1 year and see if in a year we could come up with a childcare situation that worked for us. And I just enjoyed being home so much with the kids. I knew I would enjoy it, but I didn't anticipate how rewarding it would be to be home. And then since I was able to start this business and I was able to do other online work, I still was able to have purpose alongside with being home with my kids. So it wasn't necessarily pre-planned, but I would not change it for the world at all.
Wow. That's something we have in common. Like I've always had this feeling that I wanted to start my own business and this entrepreneurial side of me, but there was nothing that really pushed me and motivate me as much as having a kid at home. And I was like, how can I make this work? Like now is the time to do it. I'm going to find a way to bring in some income. But yeah, that's really interesting.
Yes, that's exactly where I was. Like I would like to stay home, but I also have a hard time not providing some support financially. And also I have so much passion for what I do that it would have been hard to just kind of put that to the wayside for a large period of time.
Right. And you have a skill that you can monetize on that can help a lot of parents. So why not, instead of just letting it get rusty. And some moms who do that and are like really satisfied, like all power to them. But I don't think it's a problem if you do want to say like, okay, I want to try to have, like not have. Moms are full-time moms. They were part-time, full-time business owners as well. That's great.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your method, because when we chatted before, you were telling me how it's important to implement like fun and play into the process. So explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so right now what I'm focusing on is early reading development. So that's like age generally like 3 to 5 to 6 years old, could go as early as 2. It kind of just depends on where they're at. But at that age, play is a really important part of a child's learning. And that's really what a child's work is playing. So when a child is going off to play with their toys, they're learning and they're working while having fun. So my philosophy is that learning how to read and generally learning anything at that age should be fun and play based. So everything that I provide for resources for reading is surrounded by this idea of play and activity. And I really truly believe that you don't have to have worksheets and flashcards to teach someone how to read. That there's a really fun and engaging way to learn how to read, and it's going to instill a love of reading for the rest of their lives. I've met some
No
students.
flashcards.
No flashcards. Can you believe
No
it? I know.
flashcards.
It's really not necessary. And I really think that kids thrive in play based curriculums in general. And their love of reading is deeper because they have this association of fun and play with learning. So they want to do more of that. Unlike if every time they sit down to learn to read, they're sitting there, oh, I'm so bored. I just want to do something else. Well, when they get to be let's say middle schoolers, and you put a book in front of them, they're automatically just going to think, oh, this is going to be so boring without even giving it a chance. So setting that foundation for success early and that love early will just keep building as they get older.
Yeah, definitely. It totally makes sense. Even as adults, like whatever's boring to us, it's going to take us, it's going to be a drag to get through it and get started. But if it's something that is fun for us and then it's something that we look forward to doing, so I totally get that. But can you give us some examples? Like, how would you start that process without flashcards? Because that's like the go-to that I know of.
Right.
So what would that look like? Now, you don't have to go into like too much detail because I know this is like, it's a process, but just a
Yeah.
glimpse.
Generally, flashcards are used for teaching letters. Like that's a really easy way, or teaching new words and things like that. Well,
Right.
really, you could learn letters just by creating fun activities. Oh, actually, we don't even need to create at this point. When you're just starting to learn, just pointing out letters in the environment. If you think about the environment when you go out shopping, when you're at the doctor's office, when you are walking down the street, you can find letters everywhere. Starting to point those out is a good starting point. Having magnetic letters or blocks with letters on them is another way to just incorporate them. And you're just starting to have conversations, especially at an early age. Just have conversations about those letters and play with them. So I recommend, and it's actually a lot of educators start this way. When you're learning letters, start with the letters of the child's name because they have meaning to them. Go for letter hunts around the house for the letters of their name. Then they start to recognize those. When they go to the store, they might see, oh, that box has an A on it. There's an A in my name. And they start to see it there. And then they're driving in the car and they see a sign that has an S. Oh, there's an S. That one's in my name. And then you just build from that point. So they're recognizing it and seeing it in their environment. And then more structured activities, play activities, could be incorporated as well.
Oh, I love that. Like, first of all, one thing that stuck out to me was the fact that you said just looking at letters in our environment, because that's what I did when I was. So my husband's Serbian, and when I was living in Serbia at the time, that's how I learned how to read, because I would just ask him, what is that letter? And what is this letter? And this, like, there are a lot of bakeries. And then I learned, okay, that's pekara. But it was exactly that. We were just out and all of the signs are in Cyrillic. And that's how I learned, just from the environment. So it makes sense that, like, this is how children are first exposed to their first letters. It's just going out in the environment and seeing signs everywhere.
Yeah, and it relates to them too, because they see it in their environment and they see its importance in their environment, and they realize that those like how you said, what's that word or what's that letter? Then they start to see that this, whatever it is, has meaning, and those letters create words to mean something. And that's a really important foundational skill that they're learning as they're building reading skills.
Well, and I like that tip too, to start with their name because it has meaning to it. That's a good one.
Yeah. Even their like siblings' names or grandparents' names too, something that has meaning to them, they're going to be more motivated to learn first. And then you can build from that.
That's a cool tip. And you mentioned that there's like a range, but would you start this type of process at 2 or is that too early? Because I'm saying that maybe it's personal because I have an almost 2-year-old.
I think that depends on the child. Some 2-year-olds might be ready. I think traditionally 3 to 4 years old is when they are developmentally ready and motivated to learn. But 2-year-olds still can start recognizing shapes and letters. They might not, if they don't have the vocabulary, they might not be able to say what the letter is, but they could still be exposed to it. It's definitely not going to be harmful. But 3 to 4 years old is generally where most of that learning takes place.
Okay, cool. So let's go on to like family and things like that. So how many children do you have? So you said you have 2?
I have 3. So now I have 3. At the time when we made this transition to me staying at home, we had 2. And then we had another, she almost a year and a half now. So I have a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a almost 1.5-year-old.
Wow, awesome. Keep them coming. No, I'm joking.
I might have reached my max at this point. They are a handful. I love them dearly. But they keep me on my toes.
And then I'm only at 1 and it's pretty overwhelming. So more power to you. But I'll get there. Maybe I'll catch up.
Yeah, we tell everybody that the transition to 1 to 2 was the hardest for us. And then after that, once we had our 3rd, it was like, it's already chaos. It just adds to the chaos. It's fine.
That's what my sister said. I remember I would call her and there was always like noise in the background, like she's at some football game or something. And now I understand, like it wouldn't even bother her. She could hold a whole conversation. And I'm the one like, how does this not bother you? But now I get it.
Yeah, you just have to tune it out sometimes.
So you're running a business from home and you have 3 lovely kids. Do you have any special routines that help you manage both?
Well, I'm not always an expert at this. Like self-care is not something I am fantastic at, and I'm continuing to work on that. In the classroom, I struggled, but at home, I have more control over my environment. So some things that I do to help myself stay sane and present in both aspects of my life is I schedule time for work. So my husband is very supportive of everything that I do, and we have a schedule of when I work. And when I say I'm going to work, I sit and I work. And when I say I'm going to be, with the kids and present with the kids, I try to be there and present with the kids. I can't say I'm perfect at that, but I do try. Some other things that I try to do is getting out and doing something for myself every day, which I don't need a whole lot. So a walk is sufficient for me.
Right.
Just getting out for a walk. And I don't even do it by myself. It's with the whole family, which isn't always relaxing, but it does get me out of the house and outside, even if it's today was like 28 degrees on our walk. So it wasn't a long walk, but we did go out and take a walk. So that kind of keeps me grounded and something to look forward to every day. So trying to keep those structured times so that I'm not with the kids and constantly trying to get work done. And then I'm not trying to get work done and constantly have kids around. So I try to have that structure so I can stay present in what I'm doing at that given time.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I like that you use that word present because that's something that I'm struggling with now because I'm kind of like at the beginning of all this. And I find it like difficult when I say, okay, this is the time that I'm with my son. But then I get an email and then I realize, oh man, I forgot something and I want to like, I'll get to it later, but then I want to answer it now. So I'm glad you're like keeping it real. Like
yes. Yeah. Like I said, definitely not perfect because I will quickly answer an email because I think once I do it, it's at least off my mind. So yeah, it's a constant process and it's going to adapt and change as my business grows, but that's what I try to do for now.
And it's funny how you came to like self-care and doing something for yourself. I feel like that's something like all the moms I've talked to so far. They're like, I don't need a lot. Like our standards became so low. I'm like, I just need a shower, a hot shower by myself. I just need a walk. Like that's how I am. Just give me like a few minutes to myself.
Exactly. It does get to that point, but it works.
Yeah, and I find it that it's more the mothers that have young children, like when they get older. So I'm sure it'll be easier, I guess.
Yes,
No, I'm just-
I think easier in some ways and more challenging in others is what I hear. So
yeah.
we'll see.
Then during the puberty and everything, they're like different challenges.
Yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned how your husband is really supportive. Tell me about that. You're splitting your time between growing a business and your children. How do you find quality time with your spouse, where you both have 3 kids and you both work and you're supporting each other? Do you find time to have like alone time and quality time?
That's another hard one. Again, not perfect at, but we do try. Well, I say this, but we just found out that our last actual date night was 6 months ago, and we didn't even realize it. We are pretty strict on our evenings, our weekend evenings, that we don't plan anything. That's just our time to be together after the kids go to bed. We had for a while been doing monthly dates where we get out of the house away from the kids, but apparently the past 6 months we have
Right?
really laxed on that. And
Time just flies.
it does. We had to go back to the calendar because I was thinking it could not have possibly been that long. Sure enough, it was. So yes, we try to stick to those weekend nights. My husband works second shift, so in the evening he doesn't get home till really late at night. So during the week we don't have that time together. So we really try to stick to that on the weekends, that we get a couple hours on the weekends just to ourselves.
That's good. I heard a podcast by Esther Perel, how she said that like some people treat their businesses, if they treated their relationships like they treated their businesses, they would be much more, healthy and successful. Or you should put as much effort. But it's so challenging.
It is. And thankfully, my husband is supportive and knows what I'm trying to work towards and wants that for me as well. So sometimes it's like, I just have to get this one thing done. He understands, I need to carve out 30 minutes for this. And he's very supportive of that. And with the intention that this won't always be the case, because I'm just like you, I'm just kind of starting out. And I think this is the hardest part, is this starting out phase. And hopefully it gets easier in some ways and again, harder in other ways, but to carve out more time in the future.
Yeah, exactly. That's the plan. And that's exactly like you said. My husband is supportive too. Like he's out with my son now. So I have like some quiet in the house. But yeah, I think just like when you're at that building stage, you really have to be on it and build. And once you like get into it and you can make systems and maybe hire an assistant and, make things a bit easier, and that'll be more free time that you can buy back to have with your family. And
right.
That's the goal. Getting back a little bit back to reading before.
Yes.
What are some of your tips that you have for parents with young children who are interested in introducing their kids to read, or they want their kids to be like life learners or have a love of reading?
Sure. I have 5 tips that I like to give because I think these are foundational for starting to build their learning journey. So when they're young, use topics that interest them to get them excited. So if you have someone who's really interested in dinosaurs, have them learn about dinosaurs or learn using dinosaurs, or they have a dinosaur stomp to stomp out letter sounds, something that interests them so that they find fun and joy in it. But also, you kind of just want to go with the flow. So sometimes I do this too. I go into an activity that I have planned for my kids and we're going to do this fun thing and we're going to learn about rhyming words today. But my kids, once they get into it, they take it a different direction because they have better creative minds than I do. And so they take it and they're doing rhyming, but they're doing it in a way that I wasn't intending. Just go with the flow. That's what I found because there's so much learning when they are motivated and pushing it towards what they enjoy. And yeah, and they tend to learn more that way because I'm not forcing it upon them. They're just taking
Yeah.
it and running.
Child led. You're going with their interests, you
Yes.
with their flow. And then that way, like, yeah, they feel like it's a game.
Yes. So I try to, while I have an idea in mind, I'm always keeping it also like I know that they might try something else. Like I'm willing to go with whatever piques their interest. Let's see. My other one was, to reach your child where they're at academically. So not trying to push something that they don't understand. Try not to push them towards that before building the foundational skills. So like, as I said, with their learning the letters, start with their name first and then build from there. So I think that trying to force all letters at them and expecting them to know all the letters of the alphabet right off the bat isn't necessarily appropriate right away. Just build and focus on where they are at and build from at that point. Focus on fun. So I guess I did already talk about that. Focus on fun, make it play-based and fun. Don't force it if they're hungry, tired, sick. We want them to learn, but we don't want them to feel forced. And my last tip I already kind of talked about, but use the world as your classroom because really wherever you see a learning opportunity of letters or rhymes or finding vocabulary terms that are new to them, just use the environment to do that.
I love all of these tips. They're all applicable.
Yeah, and there should be everybody should be able to do it. You don't need extra resources. You don't need materials necessarily. All the activities that I provide to my subscribers are always supposed to be things that you might already have around your home or have no materials at all, because I don't think you need to spend hundreds of dollars on materials to learn. People have learned to read for centuries without having all the crazy stuff that we have as options today.
Wow, I love that. So with the little guidance from a specialist like you and just simple things that you could get from like the dollar store or something, we can make a nice learning environment, make kids that just love to read.
Right. Yes, that's the goal, and I really think it's possible.
Awesome. So let's close it out a bit. And do you have any advice for moms who are like in your position? Maybe they just had children, they have an idea for a business.
I think if you have an idea, you're passionate about it, and you have a vision, go do it, because you're never going to know if it's going to work unless you try. If you sit there and wonder and think and dream but don't take action, you're never going to know if it's going to be successful. And I've heard, and I use this as my mantra all the time, you hear stories, success stories, and they will tell about how they failed and they failed and they failed and they had to try something new and then they had to try it again and they just kept going. And then it just happened, like after working through all those milestones and those challenges. And I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something to the effect of, you won't reach success if you quit. So I can't remember exactly what it was, but you have to keep going. If you quit, you're never going to reach your success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've heard that too. And I've seen examples like it, like people, they try and pivot and do different things. And then the thing, like finally after years, it could be sometimes after months, sometimes after years, and they would have never gotten there if they didn't start.
Right. So, and it's going to be scary and you're not going to know what you're doing for a little bit. And yeah, my advice is just push through. If you're truly passionate about it, it will become worth it.
Thank you so much. So tell us where we can find you. Tell us where we can connect with you and maybe even work with you.
Yes. So you can find me on my website, which is growinginliteracy.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page. If you're interested in getting weekly activities from me, I believe on both my website, Instagram, and Facebook, you can sign up for a 7 days of early literacy activities for free. And then you'll be added to my email list where I call it the weekly reading garden, where you can get an activity each week based on a specific literacy goal for that month. So the month of April, I believe, might be letters. And then May will be rhyming. And so each month is going to be a new skill and different resources each week to work on that skill.
Wow, I love that. I'm signing up.
Go right ahead. I'd love to have you.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope we have you again in the future. And
Yes, thank you
that's
so
all
much.
tonight. Take care and much health and wealth and prosperity to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Maternity Leave. I hope you found value in this episode. Your support means the world. By subscribing, leaving a comment, and sharing this episode with another mom entrepreneur, you'll help it grow and reach more incredible guests who can share their insights and guidance. Until next time, take care, love on your loved ones, and make it happen. You got this.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a